The Print off the Cuff. Presenting partner, Edelweiss. Experience partner, the Quorum. Gifting partner, Vahdam India. Beverage partner, Jameson Irish Whiskey.
Thank you so much, General, for joining here at the Print off the Cuff. So straight away, you've been the second CDS and you've had a full tenure. Now, looking back, what do you think has been your biggest achievement, and what do you think is something that you've left for General Subramani sir to take over from and carry it forward, sir?
I think one of my biggest achievements, which I personally think, is that to get the three services to talk to each other more often and bring some kind of bonhomie amongst them. That existed there, but I thought that when I took over, that didn't exist to the degree which we wanted actually. This is all essential for any future war fighting, that all of us think together, work together, and build that mutual confidence amongst each other so that, we can share whatever our inner thoughts are. If you keep your thoughts with you, and then at the outer level, if you're interacting, then there's no fun. You should be able to say what you want to the other service. So that openness, I think I was able to achieve. That, I think, is one. And that helped us also during Operation Sindoor. And for an army officer, I think, army means armed forces officer, I would say, because I represent now all three, not the army alone. So I would say that you plan many things, but the proof of the pudding is when it gets tested into battle and combat. So whatever we are doing in your lifetime, if it gets tested, there's so many officers who come and join the services. They may have planned so many things, but it never gets tested during their time. So I was fortunate, it got tested, proved. So that gives you some amount of happiness. As far as General Raja Subramani is concerned, everything which I wanted actually, I could not complete. There are a number of initiatives which got left halfway, some 3/4, some almost nearing completion. So these things, I think if we do this, that will be a great achievement for all of us. That's what I feel.
Okay. So what are if you tell us 3 projects which are closest to completion?
Okay. So one has already been completed. I always thought that at the backbone of the armed forces should be a development of a strategic culture amongst all of us. So on this account, we wanted that, our think tanks should have real autonomy. They should have their own funding, government funding, in fact. They should not be looking for funds from outside, from industry or foreign sources. So all of them, whether it is Army, Navy, Air Force, and CENJOs. So finally, government has approved another transfer of about 5 crores each for these think tanks, including for the USI. So you'll find them more active. So that was one project which has just got over. I also wanted to put into our war colleges a civilian faculty. Presently, all our war colleges, staff college, and CDM has got a faculty which is of armed forces. Now, we all come on a very short tenure, and whatever we teach to the future generation of leadership is based on the experience I have. There is no academic background to it. So that's the part which is missing. So I wanted this civilian faculty to be part of war colleges and CDM and staff college. That also should be coming through. So we'll have army officers and civilians, which happens in other countries. Means if you go to US, America, UK, you find civilian faculties who are professors, teachers who teach the basics of strategy. And the experience part comes in from military officers. So that's another thing which you're doing. So strategic culture. Means I thought there are some projects, so they're continuing.
And the third?
Maybe I should say your expansion of your capabilities into, say, geospatial domain. That I think is one thing. We talk about communication, air defense. But if your geospatial data is one, that's the basic thing for integrating. So earlier we used to depend on Survey of India, but Survey of India and Military Survey have broken ranks. Our officers have come back. So we need to create a defense geospatial agency. So we worked on that, and so it's moving around for some comments. We wanted to work something on future warfare. That I think is again important. So I'll tell you one more. So 3 are over.
Yes.
Future warfare is one. So in this, I started this future warfare course, which now has a government sanction. Means initially when you start, I didn't have a proper sanction for it. Now I have a government sanction to run that course, 3 courses a year. And then of course we also were working on creating of a future operation analysis group, small cell into headquarter ideas, which will debate this, how wars will be fought in future and what we need to do about it. So this was one more initiative. Number of such initiatives.
So,
This is besides.
I will
data
just I will just ask one little follow up that on these think tanks, do they also have intellectual autonomy, in the sense that will they only be projecting? And I'll be straightforward. That's always been the problem with IDSA, because IDSA has ended up articulating government's point of view. Will these think tanks now have the intellectual autonomy to think regionally?
IDSA always has been getting funding from MOD
Yes, yes.
every month, every year. I do not know what the amount of funding, about 20, something like that. Whereas these are other think tanks, which are services think tanks, and USI, which is tri-service. And that, of course, was based on some funding which we had received earlier. Later on, they were trying to raise their own funds, etc. So this is a matter that whether they should have autonomy or not. So we feel, when we granted those funds, that they should have an intellectual autonomy, yet they have to follow a bit of an SOP. And that is about participation and all, not about writing. Where do they go? How do they get these MOUs with? What time do they go? So something which they is sensitive, they must inform before they do
No,
something.
I'm only talking of intellectual autonomy.
So that would be there.
Can the naval think tank, for example, can somebody there come up with a paper saying aircraft carriers are no longer needed? Because the officer in charge will be from the Navy, serving officer of the Navy.
Yeah, so that of course is your professional integrity. What you feel, you should be able to convey. That's a separate thing altogether. But if that paper is to be given by a think tank, certainly. Means CAPS have always, we've been working on this theatrisation and jointness. But once in a while you find that CAPS had an article which has a contrarian view.
yeah.
But I never said anything to them. This is, you should have a view. Everyone should have a view and it should be openly debated. Why should I sell CAPS to stop this kind of articles which go against the grain of this jointness, integration, or say theatre commands?
CAPS is Center for Air Power Studies and St. Joe's is Center for Joint Warfare Studies. Yes.
St. Joe's. Clause is for land warfare and
warfare.
National Maritime Foundation. And USI is United Service Institution. That's the oldest think tank in India, 1870 or something.
I think it's the oldest think tank of any kind.
Yeah.
It's almost as old as
RUSI. It's a derivative of RUSI.
RUSI.
So yeah, so that was the Indian counterpart to Royal United Service Institution. So
I think it's almost as old as Survey of India,
yeah, it's 1800 something.
1873.
So you mentioned that when you came in, the services were not talking to each other. Basically what it meant was that the services were working in silos. Now the post of CDS was created with the theatrisation in mind. One of the mandate that was to bring in jointness among the services, right? Now, if you could, tell our audience and our viewers online, why is theatrisation so important? There are many people who, there are certain people who are critical of the theatrisation. Some believe that we are just copying what the West and the Chinese have done. If you speak to somebody from the Air Force, they will have a different view of theatrisation. Similarly, there are multiple views. So why is theatrisation so important? Is theatrisation equal to joiners, or can joiners be different from theatrisation?
It, it may take me some time to explain this thing. See, war and warfare is changing very, very rapidly. And you need to be prepared to fight a future kind of a war. So war will not happen in a single service domain tomorrow. It's only a threat in the air and Air Force is acting. So probably what we are moving towards is known as multi-domain operations. So simultaneously in all the domains, force is applied in an integrated kind of manner. And now it includes not only your traditional domains of air, land, and sea, maritime, but also cyber, space, info warfare, electromagnetic domain, all of them. So this has to be done together. It's not the three services only. The other domains have also to be integrated into your war plans. So on one hand, this is getting very, very complex and it's changing very rapidly. On the other hand, even running of the services is getting very complex. Legal issues are there, HR issues are there, Agnipath scheme. There's so many things which take away the time of commanders on how to run a force. It's a 12 lakh force, which is the army. It's a huge force. On day-to-day basis, a chief hardly gets time to look at operational matters because he's involved day-to-day managing of that huge armed forces. Or for the Air Force, which is a technical arm, it's something like that. So Theatre Command is trying to separate out this force generation and force application. We are separating that out. Till now, the whole force generation and force application was responsibility of a service chief. And he was responsible to the government of India only in a single domain. That means if there is a maritime domain, there is a threat. So Navy chief had to understand what kind of a force he will have, what kind of manpower, what kind of training. He'll develop that force and then make a war plan to fight. So what we are saying that this is becoming very, very complex. In any case, everything has to be done together. So you separate out this force generation and force application. Force generation remains the responsibility of current service chiefs, and you create theatre commanders, which are integrated, and they look only after operations. And hence, since they do not have this other responsibilities, so they'll be focused totally on how to fight. So administrative responsibility, maintenance, etc. will be of someone else. So this is the basic concept of theatrisation, and I think it's a requirement of the future. It's not that only jointness by itself will not suffice. You'll have to have structures. You have to have everything has to be integrated in a particular kind of manner for it to function, to fight more effectively in future.
How important it is for different forces to fight, I will give you a true life example, very well documented. It's a Pakistani example, very well documented even by Pakistanis. In 1971, when both Indian Navy and Indian Air Force attacked quite successfully Karachi, and they were repeated. The Navy had 2 sets of attacks, and the Air Force carried out, I think, 4 rounds of attacks. Canberras at night and Hunters during the day. Pakistan Air Force never came up to challenge them. And Pakistani Navy lost quite a bit of assets there. Pakistani Navy chief called his Air Force counterpart and he said, you know, all this stuff is happening, where are you? And the air chief said, old boy, this is war, these things happen. So obviously the two forces were not talking with each other, and that can happen anywhere if people are working in silos. So that's a good example. I will come to you, sir. Before that, we have very smart subscribers. So our first question from a subscriber, Subrash Purkayastha, he's head of AI and machine learning at PayPal India Private Limited. He says, is there a feasible approach to get around our lack of stealth technology using autonomous aerial vehicles?
Yeah, so there are 2 different technologies. Stealth is one and autonomous technologies is one. There is a possibility that autonomy is there because you can fly today in an environment which is denied by GPS or any other thing by just visually matching terrain.
Yeah.
So that's possible today. Or you can have, today at shorter ranges, you have this first-person view drones. So that controller continues and it can't be interfered with. So there is autonomy, means the control is there with the controller. It can't be then interfered with. So this is one. But if you're looking at very long range and deep strikes and weight of attack, then probably stealth will come in. And when you talk about stealth, it is not only related to aircrafts, it's also related to ships, it may be related to even land forces. So stealth would be a requirement because today, if you're detected, then you can be targeted. So, and drones or autonomous system by themselves, 100%, we are not, I think, into that era that we can depend 100% on them. So it has to be a combination. I do not know what will happen after, say, 20 years, when there will be absolutely automation and machines are fighting with machines, probably. But today, these are also required.
Sir.
My name is Ashwini. I run a consulting firm. We learned some lessons around LOC management with Kargil, and with Galwan we learned some lessons about LSC management because we've now got permanent deployments 24/7. We are also looking at, you mentioned geospatial, which is becoming an important part. So Sindoor taught us something in the first few days when the Chinese were supporting Pakistan with some geospatial information. Now, there's an unequal balance of power between China and India when it comes to geospatial. I mean, we have only about 40 plus satellites which are looking at our country. They have over 100 plus. Your views on how are we going to look at, because geospatial is going to become very, very important in terms of future warfare.
So what's our view from a geopolitical standpoint as to how that impacts our defense posture? And a supplementary question would be, what are the lessons that we are learning from the Ukraine war and the recent, I won't call it war, but interaction between the US and Iran?
I think there's a follow-on question also.
Go ahead.
Sir, I'm Captain Sharma, retired from the Navy. Taking a cue from the question regarding the balance of power. Now we have the dragon with us, breathing down our neck, giving submarines to our western neighbor. We have a CCS approval for the last 30 years. We have done something about it, and maybe we have achieved 25%. Why are we lagging? Where is the problem of taking a decision? We keep on hearing that something is coming from here, something is coming from there.
This is a decision on new submarines.
There is a decision, but sir, it is pending for long. It is being deliberated.
It's been pending for only about 35 years.
Yeah. So, sir, the CDS has been there for the last 6 years, and now it is time to, push up things. No matter wherever we give it, we have a facility which is lying vacant now. I will not name it, sir. But as the head of the services, are we creating capability gaps? Whereas we have the kind of manpower, expertise, and the experience by the yards. That's it.
So, okay, I'll try and answer his last question first, that interaction between Americans and Iran, or maybe the Ukraine war. So Ukraine war, I think, introduced drones in a big manner. In fact, Ukraine war started in 2022, whereas Azerbaijan and Armenian conflict, that brought in the importance of these drones. And but what Ukraine war has done is, they have brought new sophistication in drones. This first-person view, long range, autonomy, all these things have come in. The drones which are on sea, underwater.
Drones which are on trucks. Deep inside your territory.
So while simple drones were used in Azerbaijan and Armenian conflict, and that saw a proliferation of drones. And today, if you look at Indian startups, there might be 500 odd companies which are making drones. And all want to sell to the armed forces. And similarly outside also. And I would also like to add that America has always led in technology. They have been innovating, say, whether it is aero engine, stealth, everything. But this is one technology they were lagging behind. And that's why they pay. So that is only one, because this came in all of a sudden, and it was masked. Of course, there are various views on drones. That proliferation of drones and that sudden use of the drones in warfare became a new reality. In this second war, I think two things happened. Over here, other than drones, long-range drones were one, Shahid class, and then ballistic missiles which were fired, against which actually you don't have any kind of a defense. So the world has seen that a small country like Iran, which has now, after that few days of bombing, had no air force, navy, and army, could still respond because they had subterranean facilities which housed their ballistic missiles and these long-range drones, and they were able to target deep inside West Asian countries with effect. This, I think, is a major game changer because the whole world has seen it. So whatever we may do, like drones, missile technology and long-range drone technology is going to proliferate, and this is going to create a major problem and challenge for the world in future because there's no foolproof defense against this. Because drones are very slow movers, small radio cross-section, radar cross-section, missiles are, coming from top with Mach 4, Mach 5, Mach 6 velocities. On the other end, you have hypersonics. So Israel is the smallest country, a very compact area. They can defend themselves against these threats far more easily than countries like India. So they have that Iron Dome, Patriot, and every kind of a system. But yet, these missiles were able to penetrate. Some of them, they were able to penetrate and cause damage. So this, I think, is going to be a major challenge. It will proliferate like drones have proliferated. And the only answer would be for the whole world, not only for us, to get into what Prime Minister has said, something like Sudarshan Chakra. We'll have to have some integrated solution because that's a weapon of future. And this will come in a big way. So these are some lessons of Ukraine war. Means Ukraine war has got hundreds of lessons, means at operational, tactical, and strategic level. Similarly, at strategic level means in the Iranian conflict also, you can say Americans and Israelis must have won 99% of all engagements which they carried out, aerial engagements. Yet it doesn't feel to the world that they won the war because of strategy of 2 or 3 which Iran employed, that is geography, State of Hormuz, and I could say distributed command architecture. Even after decommitting their leadership, they were still able to function. These are 2 that show the resilience of that society and resilience of their war plans. So these are some lessons which are there.
And Captain Sharma's question?
Sharma's question. So we had this 30-year shipbuilding plan for this submarines building, and no one has negated that plan. And maybe it's been a bit slow, but it is definitely on track. Means no one has said that the submarines will not be built. So whether it is P-75, 75I, or 76, 77, all are on track at various stages.
Have the plans, but there is a pause. There is a gap which is visible. And now we have somebody in one of the DPSUs, not a private yard, who can do it, but is not being given a chance to only fill the gap. That is what is my point.
No,
He's talking about the MDL. He's talking about the MDL shipyard, and the need for additional Scorpions is what I think he's hinting at.
With the new power plant.
Yeah.
They are only going to come and do the jumboization of the boats which they are given. They will start
Microphone.
So for the benefit of the audience, the boats which were given by the French or which were made in India by the French naval group, now they are going to go in for jumboization, means the boat will be cut and a new AIP plant will be put in that. So all this is going to happen, sir.
AIPs, I know, Forge, all Forge loves acronyms. Air Independent Propulsion. So these submarines can stay underwater for much longer. Otherwise, submarines have to come out every once in a while to recharge their batteries. These can stay underground from underwater for much longer.
Why I'm talking about it, because Snehesh, one of the articles which came out was focusing on it. That why is it, in spite of having a capability, not being used?
So we should get the right capability. This may not be the forum to discuss which submarine is better. But you yourself know, Scorpion submarines, which you've been talking about, which will have that AIP, is a submarine which has been there for quite a long time. whereas the requirements may be entirely different today. So you have to make a correct choice as to what do you want to buy for your Navy. So sometimes it gets delayed because of such kind of matters. The government is taking a correct decision on this account also.
So since he's on the Navy front, I just wanted to ask a question on that. Something which is always in my head is, for example, every services have the long-term perspective planning, which is for 15 years, right? When the post of CDS was created, the plan was to have, that 15 years is too long a period. Technology keeps changing. The plan was to have a tri-service perspective plan, which is much shorter. So what is the status of that plan formation? Is the plan ready? And also, sir, just since he's talking about submarines, when you are, you're the tri-service head, right? So each services have their own requirements, right? So when you sit at the tri-service level and look at these requirements, for example, on the submarines, the Navy focuses a lot on surface ships, aircraft carriers. Submarines is something which is important, may not get the as prime importance as, let's say, some of the surface ships. So in your sense, how do you see the future? Do you think that the future is, future is more of unmanned and underwater domain thing, or do you feel that aircraft carriers and surface ships will continue to be important?
There are two questions which you asked actually. So let me try and answer both in that same sequence which you asked. Earlier, there used to be a long-term plan, with the services used to make 15-year plan. And then headquarter ideas, that was created after Kargil. So they used to just combine these plans without any modification and present it as long-term integrated capability building plan. And that used to be given to the government for building. So it was a kind of a wish list without the services having applied their mind, but not what would be required at the country's level. So that system we have tried to modify. Now we're coming out with the ICDP, Integrated Capability Development Plan. That doesn't take into account the services. It first understands the threats, the kind of challenges, what kind of objectives and missions will the whole country will need to attain that, neutralize that threat or challenge or capability. So it's a mix of threat and capability based plan. And to do that particular thing, you require say X, Y, Z, say platform, surveillance, satellites, etc. We come out with those numbers. Who will own those platforms is a subsequent thing. So there's a fundamental difference and shift in this. So it requires all three services also to agree whether the missions and submissions which will be there for say surveillance or for deterrence or for actual use have been correctly analyzed or not. So we've already done that. I think when I left, it was under circulation. So this is one more thing which will come out at some point.
Which is in progress, sir.
ICDP. No, I must answer his
Yes.
question on aircraft carriers and whether they are huge, submarines and aircraft carriers. Obviously, today warfare is moving, subsurface. So submarine is a good platform, but that doesn't do away with the requirement of an aircraft carrier. I have always supported this view that aircraft carriers are required, even if it is huge. Wars come in, say after a few years, you do not know actually when they will be required. But on a day-to-day basis, you're there in the Indian Ocean region. If your presence is there with those aircraft carriers in the Indian Ocean region, there are a large number of littoral smaller countries on east and west coast, they get influenced. Otherwise, if you're not there, then this space will be filled up by other people. So this secures your country in the long term. It may not be a war-fighting platform, but that is required on a day-to-day basis. So these large capital ships are required to demonstrate your strength. They are important because fighting is one part. That will happen, may not happen at whatever point of time. But you need to secure a nation. Before that, that space in Indian Ocean should not be filled by some other countries. So if you have to keep them out, you have to be first responder, you have to be, preferred security partner in the Indian Ocean region. Every country should feel that why should we look at someone who's outside the Indian Ocean region? It should be India they should be looking at to give their bases, to have cooperation with them, call them in emergencies. And that can only happen when we have these large capital ships. So they will be required. for the country.
See,
And we have that financial muscle to do it, so why can't we do it both?
Okay.
So far, our conversation has been focused on air power and the Navy. Let's talk about the Army a little bit. Life has changed for the Army as well. It started Armenia, Azerbaijan, when the Bayraktars first came out, also Harop and Harpi. So Azerbaijan used both Israeli drones and Turkish drones. Then the Ukraine war. Now you see the Iran war where the army is more or less not involved, but that's a different situation. So there's a question now, if you look at the Ukraine war, it's also a question that Ramesh Khanna, one of our subscribers, has asked. In the 40-50 mile zone on the battlefront, human beings are not fighting, drones are fighting. Now, I read General Petraeus' article. He's just visited Ukraine, and he says 40-50 miles on either side, there are troops are sitting and hiding. Even their food and ammunition is supplied by drones, and no vehicle is found on either side to such a depth. So what does it do? What does it do to our thinking? And is the army, usually army tends to be very conservative, because army knows that we have to be there. There's an imperative of defending territory. So how is the army changing?
Okay, so the drone by itself, although it flies, is the clumsiest thing actually. It's not aerodynamic. It looks ugly, it's difficult to pack, it makes a lot of noise, and but yet it has become it's probably its clumsiness is its USP.
It's in Ukraine war, you can see it chasing troops into bunkers and trenches.
Yeah, and trenches, etc. Oh, that reminds me actually, long time back, in Mahabharata, there were talk of such weapons, would chase you. We all thought they were, mythology. But today, those kind of weapon systems exist. They've been made. So what we thought as mythology or fiction in past, today are actually realities. So drones have come of age. So there are two views on drones. One is that their use is being overhyped. That's by and large in view of the Air Force, because it threatens more air power, because their role is being done by drones actually. Army always needed something to fight, whether it's artillery, long range, or they will now use drones. Second thing is, that drones will change the shape of warfare in future. So which is true, that is yet to be proven, but certainly at times you'll have to put a weight of attack. Drones don't carry that weight of attack. They may chase a man, but when we are doing, say, large-scale destruction, then of course you have to put in weight, and that time probably Air Force will be required. So drones are important, and we have to modify. And Army is not conservative on the use of drones. I think the amount of units which Army has raised in infantry battalions, artillery regiments, and independently is phenomenal. So they have introduced this in a large manner.
So my microphone goes there, but before that, let me just persist with this. A cavalryman has just taken over as army chief after a long time. Do you ever discuss the future of tanks? Because the only pictures you see of tanks in the Ukraine-Russia war are not flattering to armor.
Yeah. So that's a big challenge. So a tank actually uses its main gun to influence battle to about 2.5-3 kilometers. If it's with a missile, 4 kilometers. So they'll have to change how to fight. That means they'll have to get integrated with the ISR, get drones mounted on that, so they can actually defeat armor of the opposing side at 40-50 kilometers away. So you'll have to increase the range, firepower of this gun from 3 kilometers, or of a missile. You can actually fire a missile from a tank barrel, which is about 4 or 5 kilometers, to about 25-30 kilometers, which is possible. Unless you don't change the design and how you utilize your tanks. That means every tank should be networked. He should be aware as to who's where. And what is not networked, if it is visual, that's an opposite tank. And he should be able to target it. So if you're able to do that, then the utility of this platform will remain. Obviously, we need to modify the design to save it from top attack, which is a profile where the tank is the weakest, and that's the area which drones use.
And that's why you find this sort of basket-like things in Ukraine-Russian
Yes.
war.
So to stop those top attacks.
So, but are our tanks modern enough? Our tanks are very old now.
No. That's what I said. Rather than getting a new tank, if you get a new tank, you'll get from 750 horsepower to 100 horsepower, 1000 horsepower, which will increase the speed from 40 kilometer to 45. Do you require that? 50? Or you may have a range of the gun firing from 2.5 to 3 kilometers or missile. No. You have to make a fundamental change. And that is not based on an old tank can be made a new one if you integrate this and get the systems which are going to fire at 50 kilometers.
Sir, good evening. I am General Ajay Seth. Operation Sindoor has been a remarkable success. Notwithstanding, it should serve as a springboard for profound, swift, and some immediate shift in our thinking. So, isn't there a need for having a national security makeover?
What?
National security makeover.
Yeah, obviously means Sindoor has got many dimensions. What you said was how we fight future warfare, how will we fight? So it was in some manner a different kind of war than all the past wars which we have fought. So it was kind of, you could say, contact, non-contact in largely in that domain, used kinetic and non-kinetic force. So we need to work out how will we fight in future. That's at our tactical levels and operational level. And how to use force in future for attainment of political objectives, that's at the strategic level. Because today, again, I would say, warfare is changing in the sense that I mean, I have 40, 45 years of service, the kind of wars which I was trained for as a second lieutenant captain, they don't exist anymore. Declared wars, India declares war on Pakistan, 1971, 3rd of December. Then that means, yet, we are using force all the time for attainment of those same political military objectives. You call that informal war, undeclared war, special operations. That's happening. So at the top level, this thinking about warfare needs to change. And at operational and tactical level, we need to incorporate those lessons of future war fighting. Both are required.
Before microphone comes here, I have a subscriber question. Again, Shubhrapur Kayastha. How do we make the difficult trade-offs between made in India critical components versus plugging immediate gaps in defense preparedness right now? Where do we draw the line? कितना वेट कर सकते हैं?
So, it's actually difficult to answer as to how will you draw a line. So, drawing a line for, say, aeronautical or aero engines, some aviation aspects would be somewhere else, whereas on land platforms could be somewhere else. There is also a need to look at alternate things which are available to you. If you're looking where long-range artillery or MBR is today, that can be supplemented today by drones possibly. So can you do that, alternate solutions? So we want to be Atmanirbhar. That's the basic thing and it's most important. Let me explain this slightly, why it is important. See, I said that all warfare tomorrow will be networked. And we fight in a kind of networked and data-centric kind of warfare. If you get a foreign platform, you can't network it into your own system. It becomes that much challenging because that source codes, etc. will be a problem. Again, I said technology is changing fast. If you want to upgrade that system, again you have to go back to foreign one. If it's your own, then you can upgrade it. Sustenance of that. Security. Today, all aircraft which we have, say like American aircrafts, their flying data goes back to the OEM, to Boeing and Lockheed Martin. So because they have to maintain those aircrafts as per that contract, and hence they want to know how much you fly on, where have you flown, etc. So where is the security of your data? So Atmanirbharta as a concept is absolutely essential. We must have our own platforms, our own technology, our own networks for the future. But to say that that's a desired thing, but can we do it now? That's the question. We can't, because we lack that technology. We never worked for it. Now we started working for it. We started late, but I think we'll catch up. At some point, we have to draw this line.
I'm Jalaj. I own a consulting firm based out of Gurugram. Just had a quick question. Based on the last couple of conflicts, what we have seen, that there is a very strong survival instinct that has been supported with new technologies like drones and all the emerging technology aspects. So is war no longer like a numbers game? Like earlier, like in the last 10 years or 20 years, countries like China, they've had a large build out, which at the time, like when you read, you think India can maybe, I don't know if it can really compete. But suddenly there's this wave of conflicts that we have seen that it really doesn't matter if you have, large, expensive build outs. You could really compete with everybody based on these new nimble drone based technologies. So what do you think about that? Like, do you think we can go and have as big of an impact like in America or, Europe maybe, without even having the like the biggest budget?
Yeah, so, it's a competing requirement between mass, I would say, on one end, and smartness on the other end. So old wars probably used mass, and that mass was at where the border is or where the LAC or LOC is there. But today, your mass is not required over there. Your center of gravities are shifted. So you're doing smart warfare. You may be using that same amount of TNT, but you're distributing it at various places behind. So it's a smart kind of warfare today, which is absolutely different from what we actually have grown up with. So again, I keep saying that, it's changing very, very fast. Unless we think about it, we adapt. And everyone has to think about it. Means otherwise you'll keep questioning the armed forces, thinking about how do we fight old wars. No, the armed forces are now, we should be fighting a new kind of a war. That's how technology is moving. That's how warfare is moving.
So this one of the subscriber Naval has asked us, since we're talking about earlier, Op Sindoor came up. So he's asking from what are the biggest takeaways as far as Indian military is concerned when it comes to Op Sindoor. I think what he's asking is what we learn and how and where do we go from here.
Over here, actually, what I learned was, war is Clausewitz said that, not me. War is a continuation of politics by other means. So there's a close connect between politics and war. The armed forces are always looking at clear political directions. And so they look at things in black and white. So this time at least there was a clear political direction. The direction also stems from the confidence which services are able to give to the political leadership. If you express a doubt that no sir, we'll do this A, B, C, if this is there. So if you're if and buts, then there'll be. So if you express that confidence, then you'll get a clear political direction. So that I think is very, very important. Second thing is armed forces by alone don't fight wars. So it's a huge national effort. So that coordination is required between the services. Okay, the chairman, chief of staff, or CDS can coordinate that. But to get agencies working together, getting CAPF, etc., all on board, because after all, in the border, there is BSF also deployed. They should also understand what's going to happen. We just can't fight in isolation, and they'll get that, at the receiving end probably. So a lot of coordination is required, and that is the essence. That from 22nd to whenever 7th, we took some time to mobilize, reorganize ourselves, get our act together, and then do this small operation which lasted, say, for 25 minutes or something, 30 minutes. But then all this coordination is required.
So what were these Surprises in Op Sindoor.
Biggest surprise was to me on 10th when Pakistan picked up the phone and said, okay, they want to talk. Because on 9th, the kind of rhetoric that was emerging from their side that we'll sort India out 48 hours, etc. And within 8 hours, I think they picked up the phone. So that means we had not even executed half our plans, or means we're going on, but that I think was the biggest surprise. Second thing, probably that is not surprise, but that came out of our capability probably, that we had better battlefield transparency than the adversary. Okay. That means we knew faster and quicker than him as to what are the effects of our attacks and what is the effect of his attacks, whether we negated it. So that, and since we were all together looking at it, so we could take faster decisions. War is about taking decisions faster so that the enemy is on the receiving side. So we are able to do that, and that's why probably they're able to.
So what is it that they had planned on the 9th, which they were not able to execute?
So 9th, we were told that they will launch this Operation Bunyan al-Marsus and start at 1 o'clock, 1:30 IST and 1 o'clock PST, 48 hours. So, because after 7th, 8th, 9th, they had tried, and there were drones, counter drones, Harop harpies were being used. So we did take out a large number of radars, but we had not gone in for the airfields. So they thought that if they prosecute operations and depth as the way we had done, and with speed, they'll be able to cause substantial damage and then. But I think the reason why they picked up the phone on 10th at about 9:30, it again because of air power. Suppose you hit Sargodha, right at the center of the runway, that means you have made 2 or 3 squadrons which are located over there unoperational. They can't take off. If you hit Noor Khan like that, if you hit Jakovat, couple of these airfields that were hit by midnight or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, then half their air force was actually, that couldn't have flown only. So that was one reason probably that they saw that, losses, ability of their force to generate that force was getting diminished, one hand. Second, I think since they had lost a number of attacks for those same time duration from 1 o'clock till about 9 o'clock, which they thought they had succeeded. And that's what I said that we had battlefield transparency. We are aware of what has come and what we've been able to stop and what has succeeded than them. And they're probably slightly blind. And then they thought that they would have done enough damage. Now it's better to talk. So otherwise it'll go beyond. They of course couched it in different words that, we are both nuclear weapon states and things like that. But the essence was that they thought they had done it, but they failed. And they knew that if it continues, they'll lose faster and furthermore, maybe.
Okay. So, and why did we not accept at 9:30 but carry on till the afternoon?
Because we wanted the victory to be more decisive. So we continued the third wave of attack at about 10:30, 1 hour after, and about till 1 o'clock also, 12:30. Last 2 airfields were Bolari and Jacobabad, where the Air Force hit. So it has to be decisive end to that. There's no doubt to it.
So, when you say, that it has to be decisive, there is no doubt about the fact that it was Pakistan which, the Pakistan DGMO picked up the phone and asked for a ceasefire, and India eventually agreed to the ceasefire on its terms. What is mentioned by morning is when the Pakistan DGMO actually had called up in the morning, right, to speak. At that time, the Indian response to it, to the DGMO's call was that, the current DGMO, they will fix a time for the next call. But by the time the time was being fixed, Indian Air Force continued to hit at multiple locations in Pakistan. And eventually they spoke only in the afternoon, and then they agreed for a ceasefire. But while there is no doubt that from a tactical point of view or from a military point of view, India, really took on Pakistan and gave a very punishing act. But there are many who would question, if you ask around the world who won the conflict, they'll have different opinions, right? The same thing is true for, Iran US conflict also. If you ask, they'll have different opinions on who won the war. Did, if now looking back, do you think that we could have done the conflict resolution and the messaging differently? And is there any steps being taken to have a better information warfare that has been fought? I don't want to use the word narrative because narrative can be real as well as fake.
Narrative is banned in the print newsroom. That's the main reason.
But is there something, do you think that we lacked there and are we doing something about it?
Yeah. So maybe I've said this, that some percentage of time did go about trying to combat fictitious, attacks and, pilots, aircraft being down. So did waste a lot of time on ours also. So there were some lessons learned out of it. So we're trying to implement it. Eventually, they would fall into the category of two in information warfare: defensive aspects of it and offensive aspects of in future. We are not able to fully utilize these capabilities of information warfare. Fully utilize. We did. We had systems in place, but not robust enough, so which we are trying to amend now. I'd like to say that. So both defensive as well as offensive aspects of information warfare.
So is there, for example, earlier, the information warfare used to be fought by each services. So like just the army has we call it the IW branch, information warfare branch. The Navy has its own, Captain D.K. Sharma is sitting here. He used to be the Navy spokesperson. The Navy has an unofficial branch also, which does information warfare. Similarly for the Air Force. Now I'm told, if you could tell us, is there something being done at a tri-service level, at the IDS level or under this CDS? And what is the plan, sir?
So when we went into Op Sindoor, the Army, Navy and Air Force had their own StatCom departments, and they were quite active. Since they've been established since independence, so Army would have 20, 30 officers working on it.
Yeah.
And Navy said 10, 15, maybe lesser. But headquarter IDS had none. They had just one brigadier.
One brigadier, yes.
But we were trying to synergize the effort. The people were there, but we had to synergize that effort. So now we are trying to concentrate this manpower, that offensive and defensive sides, so that they are able to guide the services together. And we are not trying to interfere into the domain of the services for their projection. Whatever they're doing, their campaign during peacetime is separate. This is purely for operations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So by and large, it will be for guidance during operations and not during normal time. The armies, otherwise, it would be army would not like to depend on any kind of guidelines. They want to maintain their independence. So they've been there for a longer time than us, than headquarter IDS. So their independence will get retained. During war, there will be more coordination now.
So during war, this new structure under the IDS or under CDS...
Yeah, so it will function during peacetime also, but okay, more for wartime.
Good evening, sir. I'm Admiral Misra. I had a couple of questions. One was that we often keep talking about the Ukraine-Russia war. But have we analyzed, because they are being played out in very different geographies, if we really come to the kind of geographies that we would be indulging in as compared to what Russia-Ukraine is. Specifically, if you look at Pakistan, not China really, the borders are heavily populated on either side. So if one has to say that 40 kilometers of frontage where you don't have any single human being and is only being played by drones, is it a practical proposition? One was that. And the second thing was related to this. We just saw this CJP thing happen. Now, when we're looking at theatrisation, is it only about integration of these services? Or we are also looking at kind of integrating the int element that includes financial intelligence, human intelligence, electronic intelligence, spatial intelligence, and cyber physical security. So that was one aspect. The other was a comment when we spoke about, I mean, it's been some time about stealth. So we today have got capability to project and deploy something called microwave obscurant chef. And we also have young startups who are coming up with stealth composites. So not in too distant a future, if we have UCAVs made out of stealth composites, which are dispensing MOC chef in particular, we should be able to, kind of get the air power along with such stuff and have a stealth of a very different kind at a much lesser cost.
So I think your first question was regarding Ukraine war, Ukraine-Russia war, which after 4 years plus has stabilized into a line beyond the 50 kilometers of both sides of which is heavily fortified, mined, and then this is where this kind of warfare, which Shekhar also mentioned, is happening. So that's after 4 or 5 years of, that's what like World War I actually, that trench warfare kind of a thing. People are down inside.
And you see people using motorcycles and sidecars.
Yeah. So that analogy during a conventional war may not exist in our case, but yes, to some extent on the LAC and the LC, both. So we've been there on the LC on both sides. We are equally fortified, that we fire assaults, etc., which you see. So that analogy may be applicable over there. In case it becomes a conventional conflict, then that zone in the LC would be something like which you witness in Ukraine. That's what I understand. And that's what we should be able to exploit it. Your second question was related to, so theatrisation is not only the three services, but your intelligence component, which is presently distributed, will also get integrated, and this would be available to the theatre commanders. But on new domains like space, cyber, while cyber they will have a separate thing, but the space capabilities will be placed under command during operations. So they're not independently space capabilities for commands. So some assets will be centrally controlled to be placed under the theatre commander, that service, etc., would be, the capability will be placed under them. We all know this, you being a naval officer, which is under command. So you have this facility available to them. So the stealth was just a comment, you're right. There's always a competition between technologies, detection technologies and stealth technologies. That game will continue.
My name is Sandeep Bhatnagar and I run 2 startups after my stint in the IT and telecom industry. My question to you is, there are 2 questions basically. One is, you talked about future warfare and technology integration. Are you engaging startups also as an official policy in the strategy going forward? That's the first question. And second, on the lighter side, did you as a CDS feel bad when your counterpart across the border became field marshal, and that too, famous field marshal, and you did not become?
Sir, मैं आपको बताता हूँ, आपका जो neighboring field marshal है, he's already on to his 4th army chief, his 4th Indian army chief, and
Third Indian Army chief.
third Indian army chief, and even if he does retire on 29th of November 2030, which is his current retirement date, if he does, his rank is for life. Rank, pay and immunity are for life. But if he does retire, he would be on to his 5th Indian Army chief. So, ये कोई even battle नहीं है ये.
So, your first question actually. I did make a mention right at the beginning of kind of reforms. One was a future warfare course, which I said has now a government sanction to run these 3 courses. This course is unique in the sense that it has students from the academia, from industry, startups, MSMEs, everyone. It's not only the service officers. And service officers also, it is agnostic of rank. So you'll find a major and a major doing the same course along with industry people, startups. It's a different concept because mindsets of a particular service bracket of officers is same. Whereas we wanted to break that mindset. So that's why we put a 2-star officer along with a very young officer doing the same course. And we also have this startups. Obviously, since we run only 3 courses with a capacity of 50, everyone will not be able to take part, but you can certainly approach headquarter ideas in case you want to attend this particular course as a startup, bringing out what is there on the table, what do you want to offer, and you can do this course, and so that's there.
You are our first woman questioner. I was concerned that this is to do with military, so actually we need more women to be asking questions, but
Yeah,
yes, one more, yes.
good evening, sir. I'm Pearl Chaudhary, President, Haryana Pradesh Mahila Congress. And sir, we've seen over the years warfare shifting towards artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, cyber operations, and physical strength is becoming little less central in armed forces. So do you think this technological transformation can bring about an opportunity for women, playing a major role in the armed forces, and what kind of policy changes and institutional changes need to be done in this regard?
So in any case, with regard to women empowerment, we've opened up most of our branches, including combat, wherever there's non-contact combat, say like in Air Force or Navy. So most of these submarines, fighter pilots, helicopter pilots, women officers are there as part of this. But let me get to the larger point of women empowerment in India. One thing it's been my experience that the services enjoy the love, confidence, and whatever of the population of the country. And whatever we do, they believe in it. So if women empowerment has to be done, there's no other way other than the services actually. If they actually showcase that, yes, they've empowered women to do this, that will be a big lesson which the outside world, other ministries, other people, other organizations, it will be easier if you're able to do it. So that's a big role we have, a responsibility which we have. We're doing our best. We've opened up the National Defense Academy. I've told you, all combat arms. So that's already done.
So one more question. Sir, we aspire to be a leading global power, and Indian National Defense University inaugurated in 2013 at Binola. Sir, it's been more than a decade and still not done complete. So do you think this is a strategic loss because, loss of such kind of an big institutional, the institution is not there, though it has been announced since 2013. It is kind of a very big strategic loss also.
So that proposal to establish the National Defense University or Indian Defense University, as the name was changed subsequently, is still there. And at that particular time, this decision was given to a study committee which was being done by Mr. Anil Chauhan. So that report is still awaited. So it's got into some kind of an wrangle. So, but I think it will come at some point of time. That's a desire. And in the meantime, since this is not coming, that's why I spoke about 2 or 3 initiatives, like getting a civilian faculty into war colleges, getting a think tank, that kind of autonomy. So it serves the same kind of an purpose presently. But long term, I think there's a requirement and we should work towards it.
In fact, George Fernandez had a very good explanation for what happens to projects like this. He used to say that Indian government system is very good at sending the file into orbit. So many proposals, the file goes into orbit and it keeps orbiting like that. So I think this is one of those. Go ahead.
If at orbit was all right, sir. Sometimes what do you have that which doesn't have not elliptical also?
Hello, sir. Good evening. Good day, Datta from ThePrint. I have three small questions for you. One is, since we are talking a lot about Operation Sindoor and Pakistan, I remember the statement that you made that the constitutional amendments in Pakistan were essentially a response to the losses that they faced in Operation Sindoor. Now they have a new nuclear member. Their positions have changed. There have been a lot of changes. How are you looking at the consolidation of military power that's happening there, and with the field marshal now in charge of all forces, including the nuclear power? How do you look at it? And since sir mentioned that you were part of the Gorkha regiment, I thought I would ask you that how do you look at the Agnipath scheme now that the first batch is going to come out in this year, end of this year? What do you think has worked, and are there any gaps that can be addressed? And one follow-up question, from since we were talking about Atmanirbharta, and India is right now negotiating a deal with a defense deal with US, the procurement deal. Do you think this kind of follow-up will have any kind of impact on Atmanirbharta, since you mentioned about how American defense report back to the Koreans and all? Do you think it will have an impact, or is it a continuing of what is seen as India's growth?
Which defense deal are you talking about?
The reciprocal defense procurement agreement. Do you think it will have any kind of impact on our goal for Atmanirbharta in the long run? That's it. Thank you.
And I will finish that question also. Pakistanis, after Op Sindoor, launched a rocket force, and now they have a separate 4-star only for the nuclear command authority or whatever. So that's a question.
So what I said was that obviously they found deficiency in the system actually to be organized, to fight and to take decisions. So they found the deficiency and they tried to remedy this by a constitutional amendment in which they created this post of CDF, Field Marshal, gave him some kind of privileges, got everyone together. Basic thing like jointness integration, which we're trying to do, but there's a fundamental flaw. Like a CDF will always be the army chief, so means the other two services will always feel slighted. So there are some challenges over there. But even before this constitutional amendment, they realized this problem of this missiles, and that's why they created that army rocket force even before that constitutional amendment. So they were forced to carry out these number of reforms, which we had done, say, for a longer period of time. So that was the issue. Second thing, your question was regarding Agniveer and Agnipath scheme. There was a question actually by this lady over here that warfare is changing, what kind of recruits and women, etc. you spoke about. Actually, it's not only women, it's about recruits also. The technology is changing so fast that it's better to get a fresher lot of people to fight and leave them after 4 years. Because earlier days, otherwise you'll have people who are, especially below officers rank, who have service of 30 years, so they'll be still thinking about warfare of what they had learned in their own time. Whereas this new kind of people is more adaptive, they're different, and maybe we can use their skill sets faster. So I'll give you a small example, like to be a good soldier when we all joined, it was necessary to complete a BPT, PPT test in excellent and good, and be a good marksman, standard shot, or a first class in your firing. So you were a good soldier, and people would go and leave only if you had passed your physical tests and your marksmanship on the range. That was all. But today, I met the Singaporean chief. There, of course, challenges are entirely different. He said, no. Their goodness of a soldier is IT skills or cyber skills. Tomorrow, it may be data. So these things are becoming more and more important. So it's time when things are changing very fast. So Agnipath scheme probably by design, it was not designed to do this, but it adapts to this future warfare better.
historically, it's been seen that great peace comes with great power. And when you take a look at being ready, a military being ready, the more strong a military is and the more ready they are, there is a higher degree that peace will prevail. Now, given the fact that we don't really have a great relationship with our neighbors, and it has been 10 years for quite a long time, how do you see the armed forces really playing a role in bringing about regional stability through military power? My name is Sheila Vasan Singla. I am from a consulting company called Chrysalis.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question, actually. In fact, Captain Littleheart, a British historian actually, he has said the object of war is peace. The very object of any war is peace. So, you're absolutely correct. For strategic stability to prevail between us and our neighbors, one has to be powerful. And this strength is not only based on conventional capabilities, it should be based on strategic capabilities also, because the environment in which we are, both our adversaries are nuclear weapon power states. So in both this, if you're strong, and this is where the basis of your strategic stability, you're absolutely correct.
So, sir, my question as a follow-up is, what are we doing, both strategically and tactically, to develop that kind of military power which can give us regional stability? Is there something being thought of in a very structured manner beyond war in Pakistan and China's doing this to us? Is there a thought process around it?
So all evening actually today, when I spoke about capability building, a different approach to capability building, ICDP rather than a LTIPP was part of that. When I said that we talk about future warfare, how we're trying to inject new ideas which are totally India-centric, and so that we are prepared to fight future warfare and backed up with sufficient doctrines, change force structures. When we say that we are going to introduce theater commands into our system to be far better prepared to fight, all this is part of that building that capacity for change. It's building that capacity to, your conventional capabilities to be more robust in nature. So all we discussed today is part of that same thing. All what we spoke about.
Yeah, hi. I am Akshat Khandelwal. I'm the founder of New Flour. It's a nutrition manufacturing company. I was also a journalist once. In fact, I worked at the Indian Express Group when you were there, but that was quite a while back, like almost 10 years ago. So, sir, I just have a very simple question, which is that in a time of drones and ballistic missiles, which are very central to the way warfare is conducted today, the Rafale planes that India has bought, are they really worth the price? Because we have signed such massive contracts with the French defense industry, and I'm not quite sure whether it's worth the price that it's worth the money that we're really giving them.
I've spoken to, we have 2 squadrons of Rafale, and I have not flown that aircraft, but I've flown a simulator. And I can tell you that to me, since I'm not a fighter pilot, it looked a state-of-art aircraft, and our pilots swear by it. They have the confidence in this aircraft. That's important. People who are going to fight with it, they should have the confidence. And they have the desired confidence in this particular aircraft. And they say that this is notches above what we had earlier. So I have no reason to disbelieve our officers of the Air Force. It's a good aircraft.
That said, the contract for 114 has not been signed as yet. It's a work in progress.
Will be signed next year for sure.
That's how, unfortunately, things move in our country. Things don't move at supersonic speed.
Jain sir. Sir, I am Aryan and I am a student of physics. So my question is about the Ukraine war, which has been happening for quite some while, and they have been working on a marketplace.
थोड़ा सा ऊंचा बोलिए, थोड़ा
They have been working on a marketplace called Brave One, and it has been integrating the private investors, entrepreneurs, and all the technical tinkering people into the procurement cycle. So it is being going from frontline to factory really fast. So do you think something like that could happen in India, and this procurement cycle could be faster, as Sir had mentioned before, due to the delays and all? Thank you.
So you're right, actually. That's a country at war. And hence, for them to have this cycle faster is an absolute necessity. For us, probably our processes and get the right thing and more analytical before we buy. That's important. But maybe when you're at war and such long duration war, then it becomes almost a necessity to get immediately, field it immediately, wrong, right, cost, that doesn't matter. Then it's slightly different. But we are not at war. We can do due diligence as to what we want. Of course, I'm not saying that, there are procedural challenges and delays, which we need to sort out. Maybe our DAP 2020, which is old document, is under revision. So we are trying to get our procurement processes right so that the time from when we get a DAC approval till the time we procure, those timelines are shortened. That's a separate thing. That's being done.
I'll since you mentioned about DAP, DAP is
DAP
not
is
some
Defense Acquisition Procedure.
So which governs, how the armed forces will procure equipment, right? The DAP or the new DAP doesn't come under him. Interestingly, the DAP which was supposed to come out was DAP 2025. It was initially expected that the DAP, and this new DAP is supposed to cut down the procurement timelines. It's supposed to cut it down by really good numbers. It was supposed to come out in October, right? 2025.
25.
October 2025. It was supposed to be known as DAP 2025. And then it was reported by some of us that the DAP will come out in January, in the first half of this year. And then the joke was that it could still be called DAP 2025 because it would be in the same fiscal year at least. Now we are in July, and the DAP, which was supposed to shorten the procurement process, is still not out.
There is some problem in the system, which is to use an Americanism, is called analysis paralysis, right? So everybody gets into that loop. Keshav in the back. Keshav covers foreign affairs for us.
Good evening. My name is Keshav Padmanabhan. I'm here with ThePrint. Two short questions. One, when you talk about Atmanirbhar, we've seen this sort of recent phenomena of white labeling. That is, Indian companies saying that they're making in India all these defense platforms, but it's more assembling in India foreign-made platforms. And this has been reported quite heavily. So how do you, sort of talk about Atmanirbhar on one side, and when you're pushing Indian companies to make in India, they're more assembling in India and sort of white labeling. So how do you see that playing out? And then just following up on my colleague Devdatta's question on the Agnipath scheme, because this is something we often ask the Ministry of External Affairs, is that the recruitment of the Gurkha regiments from Nepal, the Gurkhas from Nepal, has sort of been on hold since Agnipath has come into force. So because of this impasse, it's been about 4 years now since, this impasse has begun. So how do you see the future of, the Gurkha officers from Nepal serving in the Indian Army?
So your question about white labeling, that's come to our notice also when I was CDS. So who's doing this? This nationalism and etc. is only for the services? It's not for ordinary citizens of our country? Why are they doing it? Have they no responsibility? They actually telling us, the RFP clearly says that you should have 50%, 40% of India's content. And they're certifying it wrongly when they're doing this. So that's a problem actually, which is a larger problem, which we have to address. There is no way that people who are procuring can go to every factory premises at every time and get to understand this. So this responsibility of nationalism cannot be the preserve of armed forces only. It has to percolate down to every citizen of this country. every manufacturer, every industrialist. As far as Agnipath is concerned and Agniveer scheme is concerned, we had a tripartite agreement with when the British left. They took away some of the Gorkha regiments and some got stationed in India. And my, in fact, regiment 11GR is created out of those people who didn't want to go with British. So they wanted to serve in India. Imagine, they didn't go to the British, they got left behind, and that's how 11GR was created. General Bipin Rawat and me are both from 11 Gorkhas.
So two chiefs of defense staff, both have come from the same regiment.
From the same regiment.
11 Gorkhas. 11 Gorkhas.
So this tripartite agreement between us, that time Nepal was a monarchy between the Majesty and British government and
India.
They said that similar conditions for Nepalese soldiers will apply when they serve. So that's what the condition put by the Majesty that time, that you have to give them similar kind of a condition, which is there, what is applicable to Indian Army and British, and that's what was promised. And that's why they get same pay, same pension, same CHD facility. In fact, if they don't get anything in Nepal once they go home, it's because Nepal government has deprived them of facilities which we give to our soldiers, ECHS and canteen, because they do not want that. So there have been some challenges. So from our side, we have fulfilled a part of our bargain. If we change the recruitment scheme for our soldiers, it is applicable for all. The call has to be taken by Nepal government, that they will send their soldiers to be employed in this scheme or not. It's the same scheme, which has to be applied. It can't be differently for citizens of Nepal, a different scheme being run, and different for Indian citizens. This is not possible.
And India has a large Gorkha population now.
So, and we can, of course, domestically we can recruit people. That's what we're doing right now.
So can I tell a story about this that General S.K. Sinha used to tell us? I think it was 5th or 5th Gorkhas. So General S.K. Sinha, who nearly became chief but did not become chief, he had a favorite story that when Queen Mother of Nepal came to India, he was asked to host her, being a colonel of the Gorkha regiment. So at dinner, the Queen Mother asked him, so tell me, General Sinha, isn't it true that the highest rank to which a Gorkha can rise in the Indian army is Subedar Major? So he said that my face lit up. I said, you will be at the Republic Day parade tomorrow. The parade will be led by Major General O.S. Bhandari, who is a Gurkha. So you will see a serving Major General who is an original Gurkha. So it's a storied association with the Indian Army.
So it's open up, for the officers cadres also and men, both. They can join.
Hi, my name is Abhishek. I lead a genomics firm. My question is...
What firm?
Genomics.
Genomics firm.
Okay. We are in the age of co-intelligence. Everybody is using AI. The armed forces are more disciplined about it, probably, and are able to control it. But in the business space, we find it difficult to get colleagues onto enterprise licenses, and they will then use all kinds of things which are a clear security risk for a business. But in the armed forces, it's a bigger risk. But also the procurement of these kind of technologies is a much shorter life cycle than Rafales or aircraft carriers or submarines. How do you prioritize the procurement of something that is moving like on a monthly pace? And how do you deploy it across the armed forces?
I think the DAP 2025 would have addressed this. How do you get software and technologies? They can't be the same. Procedures for that and say hardware, aircrafts or engines which take long gestation period. And can we procure things which are always moving? That means there's an improvement every day on that application or software. So all these things will be addressed. We are seized with this problem. And when you ask for a service, then you have to keep it upgraded all the time.
Thank you, sir. So it's lovely to hear such a honest and straightforward responses. Rare from somebody as senior in this government. But thank you very much for that. So Iran showed us the weaponization of the Strait. And clearly, our ambition in Nicobar reflects the Triceres currently and the expansion that's being looked at, and the Strait of Malacca sort of then comes within that horizon. Do sort of educate us about the strategic sort of implications of something like that. And just on the side, because there was a question on the nuclear command, and this has been just reorganized under a 4-star general, which now reports to Field Marshal. While there's a political control still with the Prime Minister, and they will authorize. How does the Indian establishment see this development? Because, as you know, I mean, the current Field Marshal is a little bit on the right, an extreme right, madrasa and all of that. Is there a heightened security risk given the fact that now from the rocket force is now going into nuclear command, and their buttons pretty much near the thumb of the general or the Field Marshal? So two questions. One, how do you see the weaponization of Hormuz and therefore our ambition in the Strait of Malacca? Does that give us something more strategic? And just as our response to how the Indian establishment sees the latest development.
So, the nuclear weapons are not weapons of war fighting. And I think people in uniform who have looked at this subject more closely would, I presume, behave more responsibly when it comes to action. And when they tried to separate out this facility of their conventional missile forces from the strategic forces, I think it is with that in the mind, to separate it out so that there's no confusion during war. So that again shows some kind of an responsible behavior. Otherwise, if you have the same force having nuclear as well as conventional missile, there could be misunderstanding. So they separated it out. So rhetoric is something, anyone can say anything, that's a public consumption. But when it comes to action, especially when strategic weapons are to be used or there's a possibility of them, I think people would be sensible, and especially people in uniform will be sensible. That I would say. Regarding importance of geography, that's been always there, and the Iran war has just reinforced this part that straits become actually international choke points. And certainly Malacca, which is just south of the 6-degree channel, is an important. So that way, our Campbell Bay and these areas become strategically important for us.
Sir, right in the very beginning.
I will just also just elaborate on what you said. What the Pakistanis have done is actually not escalatory in the sense that they've taken the rocket force out. So in Op Sindoor, while the TV channels told you ballistic missiles fire or ballistic missiles fire nahi hue the, Fateh and all are semi-ballistic. A ballistic missile is fired like this, goes with first aids, etc. It's fired like any rocket. That wasn't done. So maybe they had a belief that they missed out on that one, and next time they might want to use it. Because when a ballistic missile is fired, then today the other side will make the presumption that it is nuclear, and a response can come. So what the Pakistanis have tried to do is to say that our rocket force only has conventional missiles. So I think it's a little bit of that. Go ahead.
So we started the conversation about talking about silos, and I think I thought I'll end it also on the silos aspect. Now we're living in a very globalized world. It's all interconnected, but diplomacy. So while we have a common team for defense and diplomacy, but in the real world, for India's defense and diplomacy are working in silos. So how important is defense part of diplomacy, the diplomacy part of defense, or the defense part of diplomacy? How important is that? And how do you see, India's neighborhood, in the sense that, developments that have taken place in Bangladesh, developments that have taken place in Nepal, developments that have taken place in the Indian Ocean region, and continued Chinese, presence in the region and growing presence? How do you see that, sir?
So Diplomacy and military actually, again, they have a very close connect. By and large, diplomacy is conducted on the strength, economic strength or military strength of a nation, and diplomacy is one way to secure a nation also, so that we don't come to the stage of war. So I think that's important fact. And there is something known as defense diplomacy or military diplomacy, where you use the armed forces for conducting this kind of a diplomacy. In a neighborhood, this becomes slightly more important because in the recent past, you would have seen that, in Bangladesh, in Nepal, because when situation went out of hand, it was the army chiefs which came out. And none of them actually exploited the situation to that advantage.
Yeah.
Maybe they have learned lessons, or maybe, a bigger country like us, where military has always supported democracy. So they also, it's a kind of a learning curve for everyone. So I think that is important. And that time, actually, the military to military connect was established. It was there and functioned. So military diplomacy has, or defense diplomacy has many assets, exercises, confidence building, courses, understanding each other. That's part of diplomacy. But larger framework is decided by MEA. In that framework, the armed forces do their bit. And as far as our neighborhood is concerned, I think it should be a matter of, neighborhood would be, because they're your immediate countries, your immediate challenges to your security will emanate from those countries. So I think a peaceful, stable neighborhood, which is aligned more towards Indian thought process, is always important. It will again help you secure a nation.
Well, I think I'd say thank you. We can go on, but you've given us a lot of time, and you are a disciplined soldier, unlike us. We sleep late, wake up late, not you. Life of discipline. So we'll have to call it a day.
The Print off the Cuff. Presenting partner, Edelweiss. Experience partner, the Quorum. Gifting partner, Vahdam India. Beverage partner, Jameson Irish Whiskey.